Oh, I don't have my phone. Can you check on your phone?
Testing. Week.
Let's see. Can you hear me? Is it working?
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cultivita channel. Today we're going to talk about priorities. I have with me Juliet, and I feel like when we talk about priorities, I should define, the priorities in reference to what. Because I think like a lot of people, when they think about priorities, they think about, I'm doing X task. What are my priorities for it? And that's not what I was thinking when I thought of, let's talk about priorities. But you can apply most things to that. But I'm talking about priorities in reference to like in general. In other words, like not so focused, but much more general in reference to like our lives, in reference to, what we're doing. And that could maybe be like a medium term or, long term. It just depends. For me, it makes me think about college. Up until college, I was very, very determined to just get good grades. I saw it as the best way to make money, really. And money for me was a ticket to have a life that I thought was the ideal or the focus. But after the first semester of college, I did well, but I had no life, and but it made me feel like, okay, I can do this, because I had a little bit of imposter syndrome. But I realized that there was something missing, and I think that happens when we have a priority and we get it. That's when we realize that maybe that's not actually what we need, and it goes to that to the point of, what do you need? And for me, they felt like something missing when I had it. And so I was like, wait, why am I doing this, right? And then I started maybe doing some research and asking people like, how important is it to get A's and so on and so forth. And I realized I could get B's, and it shouldn't really affect me. And then I tried getting B's, and I realized that I had a lot of time, and what did I want to do? In many ways, up until that point, I was just doing things to get stuff on my resume, onto my CV, so that I can get into a good college and then get into X. It was all like a domino effect in reference to get into this class so I can look good here, and I can get an A, and then go here, and then I'll get into college. And at that point, I was like, well, what's the why, I guess, comes in the why and the how, And I saw seniors who, had all A's, and, how hard it was. And also, that they didn't seem very happy. And so I knew at that point I didn't want to do the whole, in college they had this thing where you had to go and defend your thesis, I guess, in front of a panel. And I was like, I definitely don't want to do that, because all the seniors who were doing it were really upset because all the other seniors were like having a good time and they weren't. But long story short, for me, I was like, why am I doing this? And when I talked to people, and that was the thing, I didn't know. So I just was trying different things, and I was talking to people, and I realized that people are like, it's the connections. Those people, and I don't know. It's not like who you know, but
Hmm.
that connection in the moment. And I think it brings me back to like priorities. Like for me, the priority is being present in the moment. And I need certain things to allow me to do that. And human connection is the way to go. And when I switched it, I had a lot more fun, but I made amazing friends today where I can go and I can pick up like I just saw them yesterday and have an incredible connection, an incredible friendship, and I don't have any regrets. And so being conscious, I think, is part of it too, so that you realize when the priorities need to change, because we all change, and what our priorities are. What do you think about when you think about priorities?
Well, right now I'm thinking about also because you're talking about college, university days, and um, one of the sayings was, you can pick two out of three:
Oh,
friends, grades, sleep. Right? So you can only pick two and actually get those two. It has to give somewhere. Well, of course, that's what prioritization is about. And I think in the moment it was like, haha, funny. It's so, it's hard to get good grades here. It's a very challenging school. So, but I think it was like just a really good life perspective to say, you really do you have to prioritize on that bigger level.
yeah.
And I think what I've learned is like it's not because I want to do everything and I want to be good at everything, right? I have this need to be the best at all the things all at the same time. And I realize that is unrealistic, and that's setting myself up for a lot of disappointment. But I think being able to say, okay, in this moment, this is my priority. It is spending time with my friends. It's spending time with my family. Or maybe it's
The why.
working. Right. And so it's not fixed. And I think that part too has been important for me to see. Like it changes in different times. And I mean, the most extreme is like thinking about an emergency, right? Okay, if there's a
Yeah.
health emergency, like what is your priority? For me, it's very clear. Okay, I'm there with my child in the hospital, for example. Like not just because I am their carer, but because that is the priority. And but it doesn't have to be that extreme to be able to make yourself realize what it is. And I think it's okay that it shifts. And for me, it's also been realizing like my priority is not the same as somebody else's, because
Yeah.
I make these assumptions that, okay, well, this is, work is really important to me. Doing it this way is a priority. And then realizing potentially at work, this isn't everyone around me's priority. And maybe that's where some of the tension is coming from. And that's okay. So I think being able to understand what in the big picture, like of those three, of those five, like you can't have 10 priorities, then it's not a priority.
Yeah. Three is usually the
max.
best.
But I think even at school, at university, it was like pick two, because that's more realistic. Like if you're really going to put your energy into something else has to give.
I think realistically, for me, most of the time, in my experience dealing with people, it's really just one. But sometimes you get lucky and you get to the second one. But I think you bring up a good point. The reference that priorities are there to allow you to focus, but they're also there to force you to burn things. Because that means if it's not one of the priorities, you're actively burning it. You actively say no to that. And it's so hard to say no, because you're capable and you're amazing maybe. And well, everyone's amazing, but you're amazing at that thing that they're asking you to do. And so you want to do it because you enjoy it, but you can't, and it brings you to this idea of like, what you need to do because the world tells you to do and what you need for yourself. They're two different things. And so compartmentalize them sometimes works, but you have to take into consideration what you need to do for you and what you need to do for your work maybe, and then see where that lies. Ideally yourself first, but sometimes we don't get that choice. And we have to work, like you said, crazy hours, something of the sort. When I think about it, I feel like I'm kind of all over the place with priorities, because they're a tool and they're meant to be used depending on the circumstances, the point and everything. But if I try to think about like what's the ultimate priority, I would say comes down to what gets you in the present. Because for me, when I was trying to think about it, and for me, I think the best thing that gets me in the present is I guess breaking it down to the why and how, the why is helping others in whatever way I feel that I help others. And that doesn't mean you need validation that you actually help them, but that you feel like you help them. And it's an important distinction, right? And then the other one is how. And the how, I think, is through, it sounds cheesy, but through compassion, to love, or through kindness, whatever you want to call it. But if you do it that way, sometimes you mess up and you realize you didn't help them, maybe made them worse. But you still feel good because the intention was there. And you did it through kindness. And so usually they'll see your perspective and they'll see it and they won't hold it against you, at least. But usually they realize and they appreciate it, because you're thinking of them, you want to help them. And for me, I think to try to be present in the moment, my first priority for what I need to get the most out of my life is helping others, is usually the one that I come back to the most, because you lose sight of a lot of stuff, and helping others makes you great. We're social beings, and it makes great connection, because people, if you're authentic about it, people really pick up on it, and then they want you around them, and they cherish you more, and you cherish them. And so in that relationship, you cherish the moment more, so you're more present. What do you think?
I haven't really thought of it in those terms, like what brings me to the present moment is the priority, because I think it shifts, and that may be difficult to identify, I think, for many people, and for me sometimes. But I think it's also about where you feel looking, because I think it's tricky with priorities, because it's what brings you in the present, but also it's a bit of looking to the future.
Yes.
Right? Because it's, what is the priority? Oh, in this moment there's this thing that's very urgent, but is it really the important thing?
Mm-hmm.
And this happens, I think, a lot in the workplace, but I think it happens generally too. I mean, thinking about being a student who's, it's the deadline, got to do the thing, but is that really the important thing? Because you have a big paper that's worth 50% of your grade.
Yes.
So
yes.
Thinking about it in these terms of urgent and important, the macro, and it's not always so straightforward. I mean, you're talking about priorities also on a big level, like family, work, self-care, but you have all these levels that you also have over time, what kind of priority you're looking at. And I think it's tricky. So I think for me, it's been helpful to do some exercises regularly, even on a daily basis. Like, okay, today, what is my priority? Okay, I can write down 2 things, and I really want to make sure these 2 things happen today. And then how does it connect with, all right, what's really important? Spending time with my family, or making sure that I do this project well at work. And so I think,
or self-care.
Right. Or I want to read this book. I want to actually finish this book this month, right? These kinds of things that it's tricky, because there's so many different, like, it's time, different levels of priority, and being able to identify them without kind of getting lost in circles.
Yeah, I would say it's just good, actually. You're talking about more the specifics and the more, micro, and I'm talking about the macro. But I think that to have good priorities, you need to merge those two together, where you get, like I said, you get what you need, but you also get what you need done, right? Yeah. And I think those two things are really important, because this is the thing. I've read a lot of, books about meditation, Buddhism, and all this, and I love it, and this is what I strive for. But in the real world, I can see why they're in a monastery up in the mountains, because if you're doing that, it's, I think, hard initially, but long term it's so much easier. You don't have all the distractions of media, of your family, of all these things. And so I think in the real world, you have to merge those two together and realize, and like you said, sometimes you got to switch it. Maybe you're in a conference and you're really, angry. You gotta put that away, and you gotta get the conference done, and then go deal with your anger afterwards. And so it's just like balancing in reference to those two. I will say, I think for me, it's a constant rebalancing, trying to be in the moment. I think looking at the past is making sure that I have learned something, that I'm not afraid to keep going forward. In other words, it's like I'm here in the moment trying to get the most out of it, but I don't want to be dragging something behind. Letting go accepting things, my weaknesses, accepting my strength and focusing on those, and focusing on my weaknesses so they don't drag me down, and then not being afraid. Something happened, going back and dealing with that potential drama so that I'm not afraid. If the world, if in life I'm put in a moment where I have to confront it again, I'm going to not get the most out of that moment because I'm afraid. I'm afraid to let go. I'm afraid to jump. I'm afraid to do. I'm afraid to try. And then there's the future. And I think I get caught up a lot in the future because I'm a perfectionist at heart, and I always want to do well. And so it's this planning every little piece.
Yes.
And so I have deadlines to make sure then I try and I do that. But it also helps me in so many ways. I talk about maybe the negative aspect in reference to but at the same time, there's the positive. And for me, the positive in planning and being strategic is that it breaks it down for me. Something that monumentous thing, like getting a degree, that's 4 years.
Yes.
But I broke it down to just this semester, this class, this paper, maybe this one night because the paper's due tomorrow, and so just breaking it all down and allowing me to plan, to strategize, and for me, it's about curiosity, and trying something new in the future. And that allows me to improve and be better and not be afraid. And so, but then ultimately be in that moment and enjoy writing that paper. And yeah, it doesn't have to be, I guess, black and white in reference to I guess what I'm trying to get at is the medicine doesn't have to taste bad. The work doesn't have to scar you. It's going to be difficult, but it doesn't need to scar you, and it doesn't need to taste horrible. It might not taste good, but it doesn't need to be awful. And I think sometimes we think, hey, it's got to be hard and difficult. But when we plan, we can break it down and realize it's just one little step. And it gets us to be able to be more in the present. But the priorities help there because you can't focus on everything in the future. You need to know which of those things work for you. And I think one of the things I've realized with priorities is going out there and trying something. Because I'm saying, hey, this is a priority. It's usually what I want. And then I go and I get it. And I realize it actually isn't what I want, right? or that, it's what I want, but not exactly that way, right? And so I have to try something different in a different way. What do you think?
No, I think it's a tricky thing to do, the trying something new, and to also the attitude. I think for me, a lot of it has been the approach. And if you have clear, I'm trying to make the connection here as you're talking about enjoying the paper or enjoying the difficult thing.
Yeah.
Because I also I take on challenges and then why did I take on this challenge when I'm in the middle of the hardest part? But I think it's also about if you're clear that this has a link to something that you've prioritized, right? There's an intention. Doesn't mean it's not difficult, but then it's the ability to say, I'm choosing this, and this is maybe a difficult part, and it's part of my path. I mean, I think it's a different way of seeing, you break it down, and this is the one step, and that one step can be empowering, but also you can try to enjoy it, or your attitude can be, okay, I have to solve this problem, and instead of being why is this problem? Why did people create this problem for me? Now I have to solve it. Instead of okay, this is part of getting to the end of this project. This is part of figuring out how to, make this school year work for my child, right? There's a problem. We're going to figure out how to solve it. And then it's more of the attitude to it. I think it links to the priorities, because you can see this is important to me. And of course that can make you upset if it doesn't go your way or it's hard, but you can also make it part of the process of, this is how I get there, and so I'm in it.
I think for me that is, I guess, organized into the how. And I think the how is really important, because I think the priority list really comes down, like I said, about the why and the how. The why keeps you consistent over time, which is really important, but the how can change you. The how can make it, better in that moment, because you, like you said, you enjoy what you're doing. And the how is extremely important, because usually in the moment you just have the how. The why is kind of like this thing you're getting to. And so I think the how when it comes to priorities is really important. It doesn't directly connect like the why, but I think how you reach the priorities needs to be something that you're thinking about. Because if you don't, then you will no longer appreciate when you get to that why. Because I've seen this a lot with people where they're working really hard, making a lot of money so that they can, for their families. And when you talk to them, they're like, I want to be more in their family. I want to get more in my family. And I've had this where people, you know, they get there and they make a few $1,000,000. And I know for some that's not a lot, but for me that's significant. And for me, I'm at that point, I'm just like, go spend time with your family. And they're like, I gotta work. And they change. I don't actually think that, you know, and there's sometimes people who go after something they think they want and it's actually not what they want. But the people who actually do want that, I think that they change in the process of getting that money, that power, and then they no longer have the same why. The family was their why, but in the process of the how, it's changed. And because they've lost sight of it, the why is now just to work, which is nothing wrong with it if you're conscious of it, right? And that theme about being conscious is really important to be able to, I guess, enjoy your priorities when you do them. You want to say something?
Yes, I'm thinking of making the connection between the how and the why. And for me, I mean, it's not always clear for everyone, but oftentimes for me, it's like about people, right? Whether it's like my family, the colleagues, the people I spend time with and I care about. So that's kind of, you know, part of the why, like putting the people first, the relationships, the connections. And it can be part of the how, even if it's something different, where it's like how I'm interacting with people, how I'm treating people, including myself, when I'm in the difficult times to get to the end of the project, to get to whatever the priority is. It links the two. So then I feel like it also brings you into that moment because it connects what you're going for and, you know, how I am with myself and the people around me. And so I can enjoy it better. Because we're in, maybe it's not easy, but together we're, you know, at least in this place where we are communicating clearly or being able to have humor around something that's difficult, those kinds of things.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to end. Priorities are a tool. They're very useful. And how you use them is going to be dependent on you. Be conscious of them. Use them, and you don't want them to be a burden or like, oh, I'm not doing my priority, you know, freaking out. But when used properly, I think it gets you to the present that you want. And I think it goes down to this thing that you mentioned where it's, you know, for me, it's more empowering because when you have your priorities straight and you choose something, the other thing doesn't happen. But you consciously know that you chose that other thing not to happen. And that is extremely empowering because the grass is always green on the other side. But when you tell yourself, for me, I do this and go back and I think, hey, if I had to do it again, would I change anything? Probably not, because I'd have the same information. Hindsight is different.
Right.
And so I would have chose the same thing. So it's good that I consciously did. It's so much better to choose a path than to be thrust into a path. And so priorities are there to help you. And so to leave you with a little bit of like an exercise, I would say go and write a priority list. Take, you know, a minute or two, don't overthink it, and do it to whatever you want. Do it to a project, do it to a day, do it to a week, a year, 10 years if you want, or, you know, to your life, whatever you feel like, and just try it. Try something new, get it on paper or write it on a note, and then try to come back to it at the end of the day and ask yourself, are you doing it? And don't do it in reference to like a report card where you're like, bad Carlos, you didn't get the thing done. But just ask yourself, do you need to adapt? Because sometimes we learn that it's not really what we want or what we need. And then being able to use this as a tool that is chiseled into something that's specific to you and helps you get more out of the moment. Did you want to add anything else?
No, I think that sums it up.
All right. So go out there, have a priority list. And if you want more information, please check out other videos. We are on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and check out the book, The Selfish Guide. There's a lot of different tidbits in there. And you can also check out the website, cultivita.com. And if you want us to talk about anything, please make a comment. Or if you have comments about this, we can come back to it. And we're doing it for you guys. We want you guys. I mean, we're also enjoying our conversation. But we want you, the viewer, to be able to get to the end of it. So please tell us if there's anything we can do to make it better, easier. And so until next time, stay curious, stay open, and stay true to you. Thanks for watching.